Hi everyone, this is Josh Miller and welcome to another Stukent Expert Session. Today we are super excited to have Mitch Causey, Director of Marketing at Lessonly. Mitch has worked in SEO strategy for 7 years, leading teams of SEO experts and helping a variety of small and large businesses grow their online sales, including many Fortune 100 companies. Today, he is going to teach us how to use search intent to focus on SEO strategies that lead to actual revenue, not just views. Now, without further ado, Mitch, the time is yours.
Well, thanks so much for that introduction. I'm excited to be with you guys today. Today we're going to talk about searcher intent and what I've seen, how to use that to predict content marketing success. So as you just heard, again, my name is Mitch Causey, Senior Director of Marketing at a company called Lessonly. I joined Lessonly as a third employee, and now we're well over 80. It's been quite a ride for the last 4 years. If you ever join a startup and have any questions, would love to help you out and really navigate that process. Well, let's get into it. Today we've got a quick agenda. We're going to talk about how what we talk about today applies no matter what the scale of company. I'm going to give you a quick overview of ACE, which is a methodology I've come up with around SEO, search engine optimization, to help you rank better in Google. We're going to talk about why SEO should be added to creativity in the content marketing process. We're going to talk about understanding searcher intent. We are going to map that searcher intent to content. And then finally, we're going to talk about using that intent plus some research around search volume and how that equals success. And I'm going to give you 3 quick examples of how that has shaken out here at Lessonly. So let's get into it. The first thing is that what we talk about today scales. And what I mean by that is no matter what size of company you are a part of and applying this to, it just works. And when you don't consider searcher intent, um, you don't do as well with content marketing, no matter how big of a company you are. And so so these are all companies that you see on here. I assume you've heard of FedEx and Sears. Some that you haven't heard of are smaller mom and pop shops like Vala Vista is a small local company here in Indiana. It's a wedding venue. Then you've got LoopNet, who's got literally millions and millions of pages across their website. They're based out of San Francisco. And then Lessonly, like I said, we were 3 people. We had a single page on our website, and then we've grown all the way up to hundreds of pages on our website with like 100,000 people visiting our website each month. And then obviously FedEx and Sears, tens of thousands of employees that work there, and millions of pages on their site. You take a look at all those companies, and again, what we talk about today doesn't matter what size of company, also does not matter the industry. What we talk about today is so crucial for your content marketing success. So let's take a quick second to back out a little bit to kind of that 3,000-foot view of search engine optimization. SEO is incredibly important. I'm going to hopefully prove that to you here in a second. But just wanted to fill you guys in on a quick way that I remember how to do well in search engine optimization, and that is this word called ACE. I've kind of organized the different ways that Google looks at your website into 3 buckets. The first is architecture, second is content, and the third is endorsements. Architecture includes things like an HTML sitemap or how quickly your page loads on mobile. Really, really nerdy things, but really important. Content, I think, is the most obvious one. Those are things like blog posts, any written word copy that's on your website, ebooks, white papers, all that stuff. And then finally, endorsements. And endorsements are third-party websites that link back to your website. All 3 of those categories are really important. They can make or break your entire SEO success. And so what I like to say is, if you have all of the ingredients of ACE, doing well in your soup that is your website, then it's going to taste really, really good. If you do poorly on one or only focus on one, then it's not going to taste as well, and that means less traffic to your website and less business, uh, less revenue for your business. And so, if what we talk about today is super interesting to you, please hit me up. I would love to chat with you more about digging into each of these buckets, but that's a lot to cover for a 20-minute or so presentation. And so what we're going to do today in the searcher intent topic is really a drill down into content. How do you come up with the content that you should write and publish on your website? Before we get there, I want to talk really quickly about how SEO success yields traffic to your website, and eventually that traffic turns into revenue for your company. This is, again, why should you care about SEO? I know SEO is a buzzword. A lot of people talk about it, but it's not. You shouldn't care about it just because everyone's talking about it. I think everyone's talking about it because it really, really works. And so hopefully in this example I show you, you will agree. The problem that I see, and the problem why I came up with this presentation and this topic in the first place, is that what happens all of the time, and unfortunately, even happens at Lessonly, is marketing teams love to be creative. And so when we ask ourselves, what content should we write? We lock ourselves into a meeting room and we quote unquote brainstorm really creative ideas, and we say, wow, that sounds really good. Let's write that. And we write it, we package it up into an ebook, and no one cares. They don't care because they're not finding it in Google and they don't even know that you exist. Let's look at one example of two different companies, and I think this should become a little bit more clear to you. First one is this company called Galaxis. I assume none of you have heard of them. I had never. But they are an online retailer. They have, and they sell shoes. I've actually never owned a pair of Asics shoes, but this company sells them, and I know that they're good quality shoes. I know a lot of people that have worn them. So they've got a good product, but no one's heard of them, and can back that up with data. There's this website called Alexa. Google it. You'll see they have a ranking algorithm that basically says how much traffic does this website get. This website right here is ranked at 15,000. We'll see one here in a minute that is ranked 1,000. At 15,000, they are actually on the 10th page of Google, and that's how I found them. I Googled running shoes and went all the way to the last page of Google, at least to the 10th page of Google, and that's how I found them. So the reality is, and everyone knows this, and I'm sure you have experienced this, no one goes to the last page of Google. No one goes to page 10 unless you are like just absolutely dying to find that one thing. You just don't do that, and so you don't get a lot of traffic, and so probably you have not heard of or bought anything from this company, Galaxis. Let's talk about Zappos, though, right? We've all heard of Zappos. And what do? They are a shoe store, and look at that. The second shoe is Asics. They've got the same product. There's really, if you were to compare these two sites, there's really not a ton that makes a big difference. So why do they have an Alexa rank of 1,000 compared to 15,000 of Galaxis? Well, it's because they're on page 1 of Google. We know that the higher up on Google you are, the more traffic you're going to get. And so I'm not saying that because they rank number one in Google is the reason why Zappos is so successful, but I do think it's a contributing factor. And if you get so much more, literally 15 times more traffic, you're going to probably get 15 times more revenue. So it's really important to draw that direct correlation between ranking well in Google and creating revenue for your company. Let's talk now about searcher intent. Hopefully you agree that you should rank really well in Google, but the question is, what do you want to rank well for? And my whole spiel for this conversation is that you should consider searcher intent when you are brainstorming to write that next piece of content, and do some data-driven research. Add that into your creative conversation to get the best of both worlds. So let's talk about searcher intent. I've been saying it a lot so far in this presentation, but what does it actually mean? Well, it has everything to do with the marketing funnel and what I call the intent funnel. You've probably seen this. I hope you have. If you haven't, I would do a lot more research on this. It is, in my opinion, one of the most critical parts about making a successful marketing program work. It is represented by the inverted triangle that you see on the right side of the screen. It's got 3 parts. Super simple, top, middle, and bottom of the intent funnel. And I hope by describing each of the parts of the funnel, you'll start to understand what I mean when we're talking about searcher intent. So the idea here is that everyone searching for something in Google can be found in one of these 3 buckets. And how do you figure that out? Well, let's talk about each one individually, and then we will talk about how to connect what you can infer about a search and how you can connect that to the content that you need to build. So first things first, let's talk about the top. We'll talk through 3 different parts of each of the 3 parts. The first one is purchase intent. So at the top of the funnel, which is usually the largest part of the funnel, no one's really looking to exchange money. There's not a lot of people who search for things in this area are not looking to buy a certain product. They are looking to understand a certain product. There is, in terms of traffic volume, there's a lot of activity going on here. And I recommend writing about definitions, tips, and ideas. Another way to describe this is with an example. So this quote, I've heard about electric cars, but I'll have to be convinced that I need one. So this is someone who is Googling something like electric car or ideas on how electric cars will change the world. Things like that. You can't expect these people to be buying anything in a near term time frame. Let's talk about the middle. The middle, the purchase intent is medium. So they're often talking about, often looking for comparisons. They're not necessarily going to buy in the next 7 days, but maybe the next 30 days. Traffic volume, it's a smaller amount of individuals. It's a smaller activity pool. And I recommend writing about differentiation, what makes you different than your competitors, as well as comparisons of, this is what we do, this is what our competitors do, here's how they're different, etc. So the quote for this part of the funnel is that I'm interested in buying an electric car, but I have no clue which one I should buy. So again, it might be someone who is looking to buy one, let's say the next 30 days, maybe even the next 90 days, but they're just really not sure exactly which one they should buy. So when you're writing for someone in this funnel stage, you should convince them that your product, in this case your electric car, is the one that they should buy. Finally, let's talk about the bottom. Purchase intent is very high. These people are very much ready to purchase a product, but there's a lot lower volume of those people. It's very few people that are actually searching these types of words when compared to the other two parts of the funnel. And I typically recommend writing about incentives and answering the question, why now? If someone's going to buy and they already believe that you are the best product because you did a good job in the middle of the funnel, telling them that yours is the right one out of the comparison, now they should understand why now. So why should you buy today or this week instead of a month from now or 2 months from now? Example quote for the people here is that I think a Tesla is the car for me. Where, when, and how can I buy one? And if you're Tesla, if you're selling Tesla, you need to make sure that you can very clearly answer each of those questions in the content that you write. At a high level, it's really important to make sure that you are covering all three parts of the funnel. And one way that I like to do that to make sure that you are covering every part of the funnel and to understand which parts of the funnel you need to write about next, because maybe you're not covering them as well, is when you map your content and keywords to searcher intent. So what I've done here is I've got a B2C example and a B2B example. So business to consumer, business to business. It's super important to understand, the difference between those two for when you're writing content, because it does make a difference in the types of content that you're writing. So I'll go through both of these examples briefly. And as you can see on this first one, so we'll go through B2C first. You can see our friendly funnel in the background, the top, middle, and bottom. And you'll see this list of categories of keywords. I did not make any of these keywords up. These were all keywords that Google told me about using what is called the Google Adwords Keyword Planner. I'll show you a screenshot of that at the very end of this conversation, but suffice it to say, Google told me that people are actually searching for all of these things, and but they give them to you in just a very unorganized list. And so what I've done and what I recommend you doing is gathering your list of keywords that Google tells you to use and organizing them based on the top, middle, and low-ish parts of the funnel that you can infer based on what you read people searching for. So, for example, educational keywords, like if you're selling cameras, like SLR camera versus DSLR camera, or DSLR for beginners. These people searching for these keywords, it's very easy to infer that it's probably not a professional photographer who knows what they're looking for and who's ready to buy, right? Like we talked about, they're high in the funnel. They have a very low likelihood of purchasing in a near term, but they are interested in your product. We've got in the B2C space a lot of situation specific type of searches, like best camera for professional photography. So maybe that's someone who's entering the professional market and is looking for which one is the best. That's somewhere in between the top and the middle of the funnel. As I mentioned, middle of the funnel, we've got comparison shopping, best DSLR camera 2017. That means someone is looking more or less to buy in a relatively near time frame, but they don't know which one that they should buy. Once they are convinced, right, or in the middle of that comparison shopping, they might dive deeper into brand specific searches. So as you can see there, DSLR camera, Canon or Nikon. They're comparing the two to figure out which one they want to go with. Near the bottom, you've got SLR camera price and DSLR camera cheap. When you start talking about money, that probably means you are ready to buy or you're almost ready to buy. You don't need a lot more convincing. You're just looking for the best price. And then finally, very bottom of the funnel for the B2C space is someone looking for a vendor. So DSLR camera, Amazon. And if you add some of these together, you can get really, really, really specific. So if someone said professional DSLR camera, Canon, best price, Amazon, the more you add together and kind of lump together, that is someone who's looking for something very specific. They know exactly what they want. They know how they're going to use it. They're looking for the best price and they know where they're going to buy it from. That is like a dream in terms of a search keyword. But if you hear what I just said, that's a lot of words, and people don't typically type in a lot of words a lot of the time, and so that's why the shape of the funnel gets smaller and smaller and smaller as you go down the funnel. Let's walk through B2B really quickly as well. So in the B2B world, you're talking a lot about ideas and categories more than you are specific products. So for example, this is kind of the funnel that we use here at Lessonly, because we're an online training software that helps sales and customer service teams grow and understand what they need to at their company to be successful and do better work. So for us at the high end of the funnel are things like training methodologies and the importance of employee training. At this point, this might be someone in a company that isn't necessarily looking to buy training software right now, but they are looking to become better at training, or even just understanding the point of training and how it can help them in their company. Next up are software categories. This is, I would say, like the most search volume that exists in B2B products is software categories. It's crazy. So for us, we fit into a few, such as online training software, learning management systems, really like industry lingo that only people in our industry would actually understand. And so a lot of people will be in this category if they are getting into an industry, trying to understand what software solutions are out there that actually would make sense to help me do better at this specific job task in my business. Next, you've got specific downloads. For us, which we'll get to here in a minute, is a training plan template is super, super important for us. And the great thing about downloads is that what you can do is you can actually use that as an opportunity to move someone down the funnel. So that's another really important thing to consider as you are considering content, funnel-based content based on the intent, is understanding where someone currently is in the funnel and how you can take them to the next step in the funnel. And if you can do that well, you can lead to many, many customers. And so we have many, many downloads on our site, and kind of the point of those is to take someone who's potentially in the middle of the funnel, high to middle of the funnel with just searching for a training plan template. They're looking to improve training, but they're looking for a tool, but they don't necessarily know software is out there for it. And what we do is we introduce software in that plan template so that they are more interested and more ready to buy sooner than later. Next up, we've got competitor comparisons. So Lessonly versus competitor X, or best online training software, very similar to how B2C operates. And then lastly, you've got pricing. And for that realm, it's like brand name and pricing, or brand name and discount. Again, on B2C, it's like brand name and coupon code, things like that. And those are, if you were to compare the number of people searching for training methodologies, which we know because we rank fairly well for that, is thousands and thousands of people every month. The people that search for Lessonly pricing, on the other hand, is maybe 500 to 1,000 a month. So far fewer. Again, that's why the shape of the funnel is what it is. You can get a lot of interest at the top of the funnel, a lot less interest at the bottom of the funnel, and how those two pieces connect is super, super important. You need to always be writing content that fills the gaps of the funnel. Again, if I were you, I would go through the content you have on your website and map it to the top, middle, and bottom parts of the funnel and see where you're lacking. I also typically recommend starting at the bottom and moving upwards, because at the bottom, although you'll get less traffic, that traffic will convert into revenue at a higher rate because those people are so interested in purchasing your product. Okay, so like I mentioned, top of the funnel, there's a lot of volume. Bottom of the funnel, there's a little volume. Top of the funnel is very low purchase intent. Bottom of the funnel, very high purchase intent. So at a high level, the top of the funnel is going to get you a lot of traffic and little revenue. The bottom of the funnel is going to get very little traffic, but most of your revenue is going to come from there. And that's why you kind of have to play the full funnel and help people move from where they're at in the funnel to where you want them to be, which is the next step. So if they're in the top, try to convince them to move to the middle. If they're in the middle, try to convince them to move to the bottom. If you can find that right balance of intent and volume, that is where the real success in content marketing comes from. And so I want to share 3 real life examples from the Lessonly website that I've experienced over the last 4 years and continue to be true over and over and over again. So we've talked a lot about intent. This is going to be a 2-part graph, so intent and interest. Focusing on intent really quick. If it's at the top of the graph, that means there's a lot of purchase intent. They're ready to buy. Bottom of the graph means that there's low purchase intent. They're not going to buy anytime soon. When we add interest in here on the right, that means that there is a ton of search volume, and on the left, that means that there's not a lot of search volume. So not a lot of people searching in Google for this particular keyword. Ideally, you will find keywords to target in your search engine optimization efforts that are somewhere in that top right quadrant. They have a high level of intent. They also have enough interest or volume to make a difference for your business. So let's walk through 3 examples on this chart. The first one is a blog post. We had an intern write a blog post one time. She actually wrote, I don't know, maybe 20 or 30 blog posts for us. Most of them did fairly well, but one of them just absolutely crushed it in terms of traffic. So this one blog post, and pretty much if you search in Google for anything around self-performance reviews, we show up. It's kind of comical at this point. It gets about 40,000 page views a month. For a website like ours in the B2B space, that is a lot for a single blog post. So it is very, very high on the interest scale. But what we've found is that it's typically people who are individual contributors in a company that are not looking to train their employees better, but are actually just filling out a self-performance review and want inspiration for that. So in terms of purchase intent, it is very, very, very low. So bottom right, that means we get a lot of traffic, but 0 clients. Next up is a buyer's guide. So it's this learning software buyer's guide. It doesn't get much more purchase intent heavy than that. This means I am looking to purchase and I'm looking for help if I'm searching for a learning software buyer's guide. Well, turns out there is very, very, very little interest in that. Not a lot of people are looking for that. It gets about 100 page views a month, and we also, from that, got 0 clients. So we're kind of looking at two ends of the spectrum here, right? We are looking at getting 0 clients from a lot of traffic and 0 clients from a little traffic on two very ends of the spectrum, two very ends of the funnel. Well, there is a happy medium, and that's what I suggest you hunting for, testing, and finding, because it has made a world of difference for us. And for us, that is the training plan template. I know I talked about it a little bit earlier. That gets about 1,600 page views per month. So when compared to 100 page views a month, honestly isn't that much more. I mean, it's 16 times more, but still, that's really not a ton of page views a month, especially when compared to 40,000 page views a month. But that template alone has led to 8+ clients. And the reason why I say plus, and it's not an exact science, is that has directly sourced. So people had never heard of us before. They searched for a training plan template, often variations like employee training plan template and stuff like that. That's led to 8 different companies that had never heard of us, came to our website, downloaded that, learned from it, and we used it to push them into even greater purchase intent and close them for revenue for our company. The reason why I say plus and why it's a little hazy is that piece of content is used all of the time in our sales process as well, and that also helps push people who have already heard about us from our sales team and push them down the funnel and into revenue for us as well. So when you get that great piece of content that's a balance in between purchase intent and interest, it doesn't only have to help out the marketing team, it can also help out the sales team as they're working to close deals. So that's what I've seen about purchase intent. Depending on what someone is searching, if you can rank really well for that keyword and it is the right balance between intent and interest, that's when you can make a lot of money and drive a lot of value to your company. I've got one last tip for you. I already referenced it earlier, but that is to use the Google AdWords Keyword Planner. This tool is life-changing, and that is not an exaggeration. And this is when it comes to that brainstorming session that I talked about earlier. When you go into that meeting room as a team and think through what are the really great ideas that we have, what I suggest doing first is actually using the keyword planner to start figuring out what people are searching for. The great thing about the keyword planner is you can type in all sorts of ideas of keywords or categories of whatever your product is. If in this example, if you're selling DSLR cameras again, you type in whatever variations of those keywords you can think of, you hit go, and what it does is it tells you in a rough estimate how many times per month something is getting searched. And so that is how you can figure out the level of interest and the amount of search volume that's coming from that specific keyword before you actually write it. So back to our three examples. Um, we could know before writing any of this content, we could know that relative to each other, a buyer's guide for learning software, a training plan template, and a self-performance review phrases blog post would have roughly the same amount of traffic that we see here. Without writing or publishing a thing, we just look at the Google AdWords keyword planner and it tells you that. So from a marketing perspective, I think we should always be using this data, adding this SEO search intent, getting into the mind of the person searching what they're searching to understand exactly how often it's being searched and what the likelihood is that this will lead to business, to revenue for our business. The side effect that I am absolutely in love with and is literally one of my favorite parts of marketing is that this tool gives you insight into how often and what people are searching for in Google, which to me is the greatest social experiment there's ever been. It's just so fascinating to go in there and search for all kinds of things and just see how often people are searching for one thing versus another. And I have, in the 10 years that I've been doing digital marketing, I am still surprised at the results that I see coming out of the keyword planner. It's a lot of fun. Definitely take a look. For your sake, please add it to your creative process when you're deciding what to write. And consider the funnel. Consider what you've currently got in the funnel and where those gaps are and start writing content for that. Okay, that's all I've got for you today. Thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure chatting with you. Feel free at any time. I would love to connect with you. My email is mitch@lessonly.com. You can check Lessonly out more at lesson.ly on Instagram. Or if you want to connect with me directly on LinkedIn, you can see that URL there, and I would love to connect with you there. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.